Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today is going to be my video about my time in Bolivia. This was actually an unplanned destination. Originally, I wasn't going to travel to Bolivia, but I ended up doing it because I needed to get to Brazil from Peru and the flights were too expensive, and I also, preferred to travel by land. So I got a bus from Cusco to La Paz. It was a night bus, which was actually very comfortable. Bolivia has very comfortable night buses, so I recommend taking full advantage of that to save money. It was roughly $30, but I'm going to put all of the ticket prices on the screen this time to make it easier. And Bolivia also has a website that's called Tickets Bolivia, which makes it really easy to buy bus tickets there. I stayed in a hostel called St. Peter's Lama Hostel, which gives you a free welcome drink, so that was cool. And it was less than $5 per night. I really loved La Paz, the capital of Bolivia. Most people tend to spend more time hiking in Bolivia or time at the lakes, which unfortunately I didn't have the time to do at work. But I actually really enjoyed La Paz, and I kind of wish that I had more time to spend there. It's such a unique capital city. It's roughly 3,000 to 4,000 meters above sea level, which is unbelievable. So the entire city is kind of built on mountains. Because of this, they use a teleferic or a cable car system all over the city. I've never seen anything like that before. I've obviously seen cable cars as sort of like tourist attractions, but I've never seen a city that uses a cable car system, kind of similar to a metro or something for the local people to get around. So due to that, it's very cheap. One of the highlights of La Paz was getting the cable cars up to this really colorful neighborhood called Xuluma. It kind of reminded me of Comuna 13 in Medellin, Colombia. But very, very quiet, literally no one around there. And it's not particularly touristic at all. It's mostly just local people there. I just walked around and saw all of the beautiful graffiti. It's also a good way to learn about the history of La Paz. And on the way back, I just walked back into the city through these local markets. I can't really remember the name of the area, but very cheap empanadas and salteñas. Salteñas are sort of one of the traditional dishes of Bolivia. They're very similar to empanadas, except they're way more juicy and kind of difficult to eat. And I walked through this business district to see the main plaza, which is Plaza Murillo. The hostel, I just stopped a few times to watch the cable cars. You can really get some beautiful views if you stand on hills of the cable cars going up and down throughout the city. Another one of the highlights of La Paz was the Mercado de las Brujas, which basically translates to the witches market. So this is sort of like a traditional market in Bolivia, and a lot of people there believe in spells and charms and a lot of different spiritual entities. You can buy a lot of interesting things. So be open-minded and be respectful of the local culture if you go there. This was also a really nice area where you could see some more street art. I feel like La Paz in general is pretty good for street art. There's a lot of beautiful graffiti. Some of them are related to religion, some are related to humanitarian movements or politics, and some of them are also related to the history of La Paz. So I definitely recommend visiting Xuluma, like I showed, and these areas. One of my favorite things to do when I visit big cities like La Paz is to find a rooftop bar or cafe like this one, just to have a look at the view. So after I left La Paz, I went to Uyuni to see the famous salt flats or Salar de Uyuni. Most of the people you meet traveling in Bolivia go to Bolivia specifically to visit Uyuni because it's kind of what Bolivia is known for internationally. So I booked the bus and the tour through my hostel. The tour company that I used is called Expediciones Salic or Salique, I think. I'm going to put it up on the screen anyway. And the cost was somewhere between $30 to $40 $8 per day, which was pretty good compared to a lot of the other companies. If you want to save money and if you're not really on like a strict time schedule, I really recommend either booking the tour through the hostel that you stay at, like I did, to get a good price, or booking the tour as soon as you get to the town or the city of Uyuni, because there's a lot of tour companies there. Like, you're never going to be in a situation where you arrive and you can't find a tour. There's so many advertising their prices, and I think you can find a much better or cheaper price if you book there. However, if you're kind of stuck on time and you want to have everything planned in advance, you can use all of the usual Viator, Get Your Guide. For me personally, the highlight of the Salar de Uyuni was the islet in Cusco, which is basically like this little island that has a lot of cacti that we hiked around, and is just so beautiful, so cute, very unique. We learned a lot about how the Salar de Uyuni came to exist. This part of Bolivia basically used to be covered by the Pacific Ocean, and when the sea level rose over time, all of this salt was left behind, so it's actually kind of like a natural phenomenon, and it's actually a site that attracts so many people from all over the world, tourists, but also horticulturists, marine biologists, because some of the natural phenomena that have been left behind, such as the cactus island, are quite interesting for experts. One of the highlights of visiting Salar de Uyuni is seeing the reflection from the sunset on the part that's still covered in water. However, unfortunately, we didn't really get to see this because it was windy that day. So when it's windy or when it's raining, the water ripples, as you can see from the video. So it's not really as impressive as when it's a clear day or it's non-windy day, because then you can see the reflection. After the end of the tour, before getting my bus to Sucre, I just got another night bus to save time and money. I went with one of the people from my tour for some food at this pub, and I think that it cost like $8 or $9 for a beer and some food. So I got my bus to Sucre and checked into my Airbnb. I love Sucre. I think it was a really nice place to visit, and I highly recommend it. It's like a little town. I unfortunately didn't get a lot of footage here, but I'm going to put a list of the places that I really liked up on the screen at the end of this plaza. Here is sort of like the center. It was really close to my Airbnb. They have markets, they have a lot of churches, some museums. I really recommend going up on top of the churches when they're open. You can go up to the top floor or the balconies to get a really good view of Sucre and the mountains. Sucre is also a popular hiking spot. There's a lot of different mountains close by, which you can kind of see from the footage here. The whole town is surrounded by mountains. Also felt really safe here. I had to walk at night and early in the morning a couple of times and never had any problems. The only disadvantage is that it was really, really hot, to be honest. Airbnb, like I said, was an entire apartment, so I was there alone and I was working and the Wi-Fi was pretty good, and I think it cost around $16 or $17 per night. And yeah, like I said, I will put all of the places I recommend up on the screen. I highly recommend visiting the saltenerias in Sucre. They have some of the best salteñas in Bolivia, actually. So then I got my bus to Santa Cruz de la Sierra. At this time when I was visiting Bolivia, they had a crisis relating to bus and gas shortages. So because of this, most of my buses got delayed. My bus to Santa Cruz was meant to take, I think, like 7 or 8 hours, and it ended up taking almost 24 hours. I think that this crisis, it has been solved now by the government, but definitely research that before you visit if you're going anytime soon. However, as you could see from my shot outside the window on the bus, the scenery was beautiful, and because they're night buses and pretty comfortable, I was able to sleep most of the time. So 24 hours sounds like a long time, but it actually wasn't so bad. So I ended up staying in 2 Airbnbs while I was in Santa Cruz. I actually had to switch Airbnbs. The first one was really nice and the hosts were lovely, but they were having a lot of internet problems. It wasn't the host's fault, it was just related to the building and the area that they were in. There were some power issues too, and because I needed to work, I had to switch to another Airbnb. The second Airbnb was lovely. It was in a very nice area and you could see it had this gorgeous view from the window, and it also had a pool, which is always a plus, and I didn't have any issues with the internet. However, there was also a small power shortage there. There was a couple of power shortages I experienced when I was in Santa Cruz, so just be aware of that if you're working. Santa Cruz was probably my least favorite place out of all of the towns or cities I visited in Bolivia. It has some really beautiful architecture and it's a pretty big city, so I'm sure if you look hard enough you can find more stuff than I found. I just sort of walked around and enjoyed my time there. I took it easy. I was meant to go to the botanical gardens, which I think is one of the highlights of the city, but I actually wasn't able to go because I ran out of cash and it's cash only there. However, if you have cash, I highly recommend going to the botanical gardens. They have really good reviews and you can see a lot of animals there. I walked through a lot of these local markets, which was really cool. I also stopped for some acai, which was amazing because the weather was so hot. It was genuinely so hot in Sucre and in Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz is very humid, so I definitely recommend bringing some bug spray. All of my footage from Bolivia, unfortunately I didn't have time to visit the lakes or go hiking because I was working a lot in Bolivia, but I hope that you enjoyed it. Bolivia was actually one of my favorite countries I've visited in South America. I would definitely go back. Thank you so much for watching.